The essence of slavery has never ceased to make a constant reoccurrence in the essence of mankind and history. And history has spoken about slavery in all lights, the good, the bad, and all worse occasions. But it has never ceased to make a big debate and uproar in countries that felt it the most. These countries are mainly in the Caribbean and Africa within itself. But a specific country in the Caribbean, which is called Jamaica, has recently been fighting against the terrible memories of slavery. In Jamaica, there is currently no middle ground between the Prime Minister of the country, Andrew Holness, and the Maroons. Are the Maroons a different nation of people living within Jamaica, or all of them should be considered as one and named as such? So welcome back to another video from the channel, Concept of the Mind, and I'm your host Eli, and in this video I'll be talking about the backstory behind the Maroons and what is happening in Jamaica currently over the land and the sovereignty of these people. So as usual, before we start the video, I'll implore you to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and tell some people about it. Don't be shy to share this. And while you're at it, go and follow my Instagram page, Concept of the Mind. So without any further delay, let's get into the video. So to consciously understand what is happening in Jamaica between the Maroons and the Prime Minister of the country, we must do a back check and a deep dive into Maroon culture and understand completely where we are coming from that has brought us to this point where things are being unfolded in the eyes of the people of the country in a negative way. Not only the people of the country, but also the people of this world. So for the persons who don't know what are Maroons, Maroons are basically escaped slaves. They escaped from the Spanish-owned plantations back when the British took control of the Caribbean island, Jamaica, in 1655. So the word Maroon loosely translates to mountaineers. And they got this name because when they ran away from the plantations, they fled to the hills. And when they fled to the hills, it was hard for their farmer masters to climb these hills and infiltrate the new communities and livelihood that the Maroons were building for themselves. Now these communities gave the Maroons independence over their own selves and the people around them. And these Maroon communities were developing very quickly as other slaves that were brought in from Africa to work on the plantation under the British would often create rebellions, and rebellions would often end in more runaway slaves going to the Maroon communities and further building it. So it was at this point in time the British government of Jamaica decided that the Maroons were posing a threat to their livelihood and their plantation. They would see that often rebellions would cause slaves to get away and to add to the Maroon communities, and it was evident that that would pose a threat towards them. So it was at this point in time that the British mobilized their advances and military forces towards the Maroons communities. In 1728, the campaign against the British and the Maroons was well underway, but the Maroons that were spirited and stronger than ever had made a decision to stand up against the British forces and slaughter them and take them down, behind their strong leader who was called Cudjoe. Cudjoe was a fierce leader and almost brought the Maroons to an occasion of a near victory when they were in the war against the British. If it was not for the smart move of the British to come in with a peace treaty with the Maroons and themselves, the war would have coincided to, in my opinion and imagination, the near end of slavery in Jamaica. So there was a thing that most British didn't know, or should say underestimate, about the Maroons, is that they came from a place in Africa called Akan, which is a west region of the African continent. Today it is formerly known as Ghana. In the earliest years of the British settlement, the Maroons were the most stubborn and yet the most respected. Many of them were experienced with military methods because of the fighting and wars that they experienced in Africa. So this was a thing that made them very proud and skillful in their attacking and methods in the war against the British. So when it came on to the war, the British quickly realized that the Maroons were nothing to be messed with. So this is why the British recognized the Maroons as a community within itself and gave them land and the freedom to do whatever they want and take care of themselves. But there was one small part of this deal that they struck with the Maroons, and that is to bring back runaway slaves. Now this is where a twisted culture comes into play in the history of slavery. This is one of the things that people still celebrate until this day. It is similar to the Columbus effect, where Christopher Columbus was known for years on top of years as the person who discovered the Caribbean, which was completely wrong, because the Caribbean was home to indigenous people when the Spaniards came about and came in and wiped out almost, if not all, of these people. In modern days, they are trying to take it out of history, remove it completely that Christopher Columbus was the one to do so, in the sense that he is not the founder of the Caribbean because of the holidays and the history of love and proclaim that people gave to him. Now this leads to the same thought of the Maroons in Jamaica. Were the Maroons actually a good thing for Jamaica, or were their end results different from the slaves that were actually in captivity? This could be debated in many different ways and shown in many different lights, but it all comes back to they made the deal. And not just only that, they followed through with it completely in exchange for land and freedom. Land and freedom that was basically made of the blood of their brothers and sisters from Africa. So this is where the question begs to ask, is the Maroon culture a cancelled culture, or is it truly deeper than what the eye comes to see? Out of all the ancestors from Africa, the Maroon segment would be the only one, or the most prevalent one, to maintain their culture. And this was the reason because they were the one who had the ability to go outside of the slavery and maintain their actual culture. Even though the Maroon culture is still strong, it has been diversified in many different ways because of the runaway slaves which came from different parts of Africa, spoke different languages, had different heritage and different subcultures that were nothing similar to theirs. So as strong as the Maroon culture is, it is basically a mismatch of cultures of the entire African continent. So what happened after the British and the Maroons signed the first peace treaty could be a whole entire video within itself. So I'm giving you the opportunity to go and watch or read up on these topics by yourself. But to conclude, it leaves a question to ask. Were the Maroons as strong as they said they were? Or were they just strong enough to take on the forces that they had sent in small numbers? But this would still leave another question. What was the whole entire decision behind fighting if you were only going to capture your own and give them back to the same slave drivers which you were trying to escape from? This was concept of the mind, and I'll leave you to answer that question yourself. Feel free to leave your answer in the comment section below and let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.